You're listening to Learning Leader Spotlight, interviews with corporate L&D leaders. On each episode, we sit down with key industry experts to discover more about what's happening in the world of learning and development, from current trends and insights to the most valuable lessons learned along the way. Join us for a fresh perspective on all things training and the best direction forward. Here's your host, Leanne Langford.
Hi, welcome to Learning Leader Spotlight, the podcast where we interview the learning leaders of today to help the learning leaders of tomorrow. I'm your host, Leanne Langford. I'm the president of Training Pros. Training Pros is a learning and development contract staffing company where we like to say, when you have more projects than people, let us find you the right consultant to start a project with confidence. I'm really excited about my guest today. I'd like to introduce Kim Troxell. Is it Troxell or?
Troxell. Yeah, you got it.
Okay, got it right the first time. Kim Troxell, Head of Commercial Learning and Development at AbbVie. Welcome, Kim.
Well, thank you, Leanne. I am super excited to be here and really appreciate the opportunity.
We're thrilled to have you. Been waiting a long time to do this one for multiple reasons that were all our fault. But I just can't wait to have this interview. So before we get really into hard questions, can you just share with our audience 60-second overview of who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. I will start with my current position, but then I'll also give a high-level overview on my background as well. As you mentioned, I'm Kim Troxell. I'm the head of U.S. Commercial Learning and Development for a biopharmaceutical company, AbbVie. I've been with this company 23 years now, but in the industry, almost 30 years, aging myself a little bit there. And over my time in the industry, I've led sales teams at all levels, marketing teams at all levels, and I had the wonderful opportunity to lead both sales and marketing teams overseas and two of AbbVie's affiliate countries. So I led sales and marketing in Ireland as well as sales and marketing in Denmark. Spent a year and a half in both of those countries, which was a wonderful total 3 years of my career. I've been back in the United States now since 2018, where I've done a couple various roles, and this current position I've been in for the last 2 years in the learning and development space.
Okay, so you have got an incredible background, and I'm so jealous already for multiple reasons, getting to spend a year and a half in those two amazing countries. And you don't look like you've been in the industry almost 30 years, so I'm jealous of your skincare or something. Good job there. Can you share with our audience what about learning and development first attracted you to the field?
It's my passion for helping others grow and develop. And because I had been a leader in this space for so many years, I would say that while I have not been in a formal leadership development, learning and development environment until the last few years, it's something that you realize year after year of leading people. It either becomes a passion or it maybe doesn't. And for me, I always took a lot of pride and got the most out of watching people grow and develop in their careers, take a lot of pride in helping people write out their individual development plan, really identify what is their career ambition and what skills or behaviors they need to work on in a given year that's going to help them overall meet their career ambitions someday. And that really is where my passion stems from. When I had the opportunity to take this role in 2 years ago, I guess it was, I was really excited about it because I viewed it as an opportunity to now have a more formal capacity for helping others in the company achieve their ambition, whatever that path may be for each individual. And more importantly, help the company as a whole with regards to how do we upskill our employees and make sure that we're constantly keeping people motivated and inspired through development and growth initiatives.
So beautiful answer, the fact that you gain so much energy from helping others and then getting the opportunity to work in learning and development and work with that full time. I love that answer. So what are the most impactful changes you've seen in learning and development in the last few years?
I think it's very interesting. I think some of the most impactful changes I've seen, first of all, everything is changing so quickly and at a much faster rate than it seems like they did many, many years ago. We were just talking about that in a meeting this morning. And I think there's a couple things that stand out in terms of ways that things have changed over time. But to me, one is personalized learning journeys. I think there's a lot of expectation in today's environment to make sure that learning is it's personalized to each individual. Everybody, especially as adult learners, I am sure, Leanne, you and I maybe prefer different methods of learning, just as all of our employees do. Some people love to read and immerse themselves in a book or a white paper or an article, and others, the very thought of reading something puts them to sleep. So we all learn in different ways. And that's one of the things that I've seen. One of the most impactful changes that I've seen is really moving toward the individual learner, what that individual learner needs to hear and absorb the information in the best way, and really moving toward that personalized experience. I think in addition to that, micro learnings is something that I've seen really be more impactful, I would say, in today's environment. When I think about way back in the day or 20 years ago, when I think about how we trained and developed our individuals, our employees, I think back to times where we would come into hotels sometimes for weeks at a time or days at a time, and we would go through very extensive programs, and they were great. They were highly effective, and there is still a place for those. There is also now, however, a shift towards how do we provide more micro learnings to get people the information when they need it at the relevant moment to drive that organizational impact sooner than waiting for that next big development or meeting where you're going to come together in a live setting and train your organization. So I would say personalized learning, micro learnings, those are the two of the biggest ones. I'll throw in gamification. I think that's probably always been around to some degree, but we also see where that can be a little bit more impactful, because in the environment of social media, it's just what people are moving towards more in terms of how adult learners want to receive information.
So yeah, you've given a lot of good information, and one of the things that you said at the beginning of your statement was about, how each learner learns differently. And you mentioned the fact that you and I are of a similar generation. I have this conversation with my Gen Z kids a lot, because just last week, I flew off for a 1-day class, and they're like, why do you have to go to a class? You could just do it online. I'm like, I'm getting something more from the class than just the information, and it's just a difference in the way of thinking. And if they want to know something, they just go look it up on YouTube and get a 2-minute tutorial, and they're off and running. And I'm like, well, I need a little more. So it is different, not just on learning styles, but generations and what you were raised learning and all that. But I loved that. And of course, microlearning and gamification and personalized learning are definitely game changers that have happened in the last few years. Where do you see learning and development going in the near future? I would like to say the next 5 years, but who knows? But what do you think is going to be happening with us?
Yeah, well, gosh, we used to think in 5-year chunks, and right now I feel like maybe we need to be thinking about the next year, and then the year after that, is things are changing so rapidly. I think where the space is headed is there's some elements of a continuation of what I mentioned in terms of the impactful changes that we've been seeing in the space. By that, I mean the personalization. I do see that we're going to be headed even more into personalized, tailored learning journeys, learning experiences, making sure that employees or any learner in that situation is getting the information in the way that's going to make sense to that individual. So I do think there's going to be this big push and continuation for personalization. I think AI is really amplifying the speed of that shift because we are able to see what people are doing. We're able to use that information, code that information, and actually make suggestions based on what people are doing and then serving up a learning platform from them that might be a continuation of what they're already doing. So I do think that is where we're headed. It's very much like what you and I probably experience when we're shopping online and I buy a dress and then it's like, well, you bought this dress or you put this in your cart. You might be interested in this one or this bag or this pair of shoes. And all of a sudden I'm purchasing way more than I set out to purchase because someone is serving that information that is of interest up to me in the moment that I'm interested in getting that information. And I think learning and development is very much going in the same direction as that, where we're going to be serving up content based on where they're spending their time, the types of training that they're engaging in, whether it's a reading or a course or whatever the case may be, an interactive module. So I think that's probably where we're headed. In addition to that, I think there is going to be a push for making sure that career or the development pathways, learning pathways are not only focused on the behavior or skill or behavior that the employee is trying to learn or develop, but becoming more aligned to that individual's career pathway. So focused more on those skills, focused more on what does an individual need to get from point A in their career to point Z in their career. What does that course look like? And what are those learning journeys that are personal to that individual, but are going to set them on the right trajectory that that individual has. And I think that's where things are headed with all of the technology that is available and coming out faster than we can even grasp it.
Yes, it's those are some really big observations, and it is happening so fast. And the other day I heard something that made me have big pause, which was today, the rate of change today is the slowest rate of change we will ever experience again.
Wow.
It definitely made me say, oh, I better learn how to absorb this change better. So let's shift gears. And can you tell us about who's been your most influential professional mentor?
Oh, it's a really important question, and an interesting. I will say one thing before I answer that question, which is, to me, the success I've had with mentors over my career, it's largely been organic in terms of how these individuals came into my life. That usually is a relationship that's formed that grows into a strong mentorship. And that was the case with this person. Probably the one person I leverage the most, I rely on the most, is a female friend and colleague, started as a colleague in the same industry. And she's been the most influential, supportive mentor because she was the first and only one, believe it or not, that pushed me hard and in a very uncomfortable way. And it made me rethink how I show up as a mentor to others in terms of when I would bring topics forward, when I would bring challenges forward to this mentor, when the relationship was in its early stages of being formed, they would, in a very kind way, say, you need to rethink that. That's tactical. Where's the strategy? They would push me in a very uncomfortable place that made me so much better. And then when that person left that formal mentor role at that time where we were each in those roles, we stayed connected. And now it's probably been, 10 plus years, 15 years later. And we're no longer at the same company, but this is still the individual that I call for nearly everything: career advice, job advice, personnel advice. When you find those people that will push you out of your comfort and help you see possibilities that you don't see on your own, I think is really, it's a special thing to find. And so I found that with this friend and former colleague who's now a good friend, still in the industry as a senior leader doing really amazing things.
That's a great story. And it's always great to find somebody who's going to push you into that zone of discomfort. That's how I know I've had a really good coaching session or a really good training class is, am I feeling discomfort? Otherwise, I'll just same old stuff, What do you think is the most important skill for people to have today?
I would say, to me, curiosity and challenging the status quo is critical today. As fast, and you said it, Leanne, as fast as the environment is changing around us, if we don't remain curious and we don't challenge the new things that are coming, I should say, the way we've been doing things to keep an open mind and create space for some of the new things that are happening around us, I don't think we're going to be keeping up and we're going to be behind. And I think that's the only way to maintain your relevance in today's marketplace is to be that ultra curious person that wants to learn about everything that's coming, that's going to challenge the way you do things currently and keep an open mind to new possibilities. And that's where I see the greatest impact occurring down the road.
That's one of the things that I look for when I'm hiring is curiosity. So I can't agree with you more. What is your favorite source for industry news and information?
I love to get it, believe it or not, from peers. And I listen to a lot of webinars. Don't know why. It's just my learning method when I was on one today that was funny enough on change management. And I love the opportunity to get in a learning environment myself with a number of people in a similar position as me, but maybe from related and unrelated industries, listening, talking, and debating on a topic that is critically important for all of us. And so I love joining webinars where I have the opportunity to learn information, but hear it with people inside and outside of my industry, because I think that just offers a whole new freshness. And so yeah, that and peers is probably largely how I get all of my information, most of my information. I read and other things, but those are the two sources I prefer.
That does sound very impactful, though, to be in a virtual room filled with people facing the same challenges that you're facing. What is one book that you would recommend everyone wanting to move into learning and development leadership should read?
I'm not sure if this is specific to learning and development, but one of my all-time favorite books that I share, and I'm sure you ask people this question, I'm sure I would love to know, like, if you get a lot of unique answers or similar answers of the same book, but Lean In, for me, by Sheryl Sandberg, is one of my all-time favorites. It's the book that really taught me to have a seat at the table and to not be afraid to get that seat at the table. And I remember reading that book and thinking of very specific moments up to that point in my career where I would walk into a meeting room and I would take the seat on the perimeter. And she outlines this so perfectly in the book. And I would take the seat on the perimeter, and she absolutely advises against that. She's like, take a seat at the table, even if you have to pull up a chair. And that's a really hard thing to do, especially as a female leader or in a room where maybe you're a minority in the females in that room. Nowadays, there's such a great diverse balance of inclusion within all of our companies. So that's becoming less of an issue. But having the strength to just show up at the table, invite myself to the table, invite myself in to conversations has really been a game changer for me, and something that is very important in this learning and development space where you have to work with so many different types of people in the company. So yeah, I really like that book.
So I've not read that one. It has been recommended in the past on one of my interviews. So I'm going to have to read it, particularly because you did this great job of tying it back to the experience of women leaders, especially women leaders who've been around since the 90s. The world has changed a lot since then. And a tip of a hat to all the women who came before us who had to push even harder and deal with even more than that. But it sounds like that's a book I want to listen to. So the way I read books, as you mentioned about the learning stuff, I listen to them. I download an Audible and just listen to the book as I'm doing other things, because I will kind of go to sleep if I start reading a bit.
I'm the same. I can read a pleasure book on vacation, a good fiction, murder, mystery, whatever, but business books, I prefer to engage, to chat with peers, to have live conversations. Reading a book can sometimes be a little lulling for me as well, but that one stood out to me. There are plenty of business books I read. That one's not a new one, but it's definitely one that stood out over the years. How Women Rise is another really, really great one that actually taught me a lot in terms of how to show up as a woman and how to insert myself in a more direct way. So those two together really have been informative to my current leadership style.
How Women Rise. Okay, I definitely will look into that one as well. Because being a woman leader used to be a challenge. I think it's still a challenge, but not as much as it used to be. As you said, the makeup has changed in the last decade. So thank you so much, Kim. You've been a wonderful guest. You've given us a lot of food for thought. As my thank you to you, I'd like to plant 5 trees in your name. That's our charity here at Trending Pros. We plant trees all around the world, and we've planted 5,000 trees to date.
Love that.
Most recently, we've been planting them in California with the wildfires, but I think we will soon switch to Canada because of the wildfires there and help reforest what's been burned down. So,
Leanne, that is so wonderful, and I can't thank you enough. That is such a meaningful thank you. And being that I'm sitting here in California right now for work this week, it just really hits home, and something very special that you do. So thank you for that. It was my pleasure to be here and really, really enjoyed the conversation.
Well, we couldn't be more pleased that we were able to interview you. So that's it for this week's episode of Learning Leader Spotlight. We hope you enjoyed the conversation with Kim, and we hope you tune in next week for another conversation with another learning leader from another industry.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for the latest episode of Learning Leader Spotlight, interviews with corporate L&D leaders. You'll find links in the show notes to any resources mentioned on today's show. If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave us a 5-star review.